Good morning, students. We shall continue with Chapter 13, Organisms and Populations, Part 4. Topic is adaptation. In the last class, we discussed about the responses given by living organisms in response to stressful environment. We discussed about regulate, conform, migrate, suspense, etc. as their response to stressful environment. So those responses are called adaptation. Now adaptation is any attribute of the organisms, either morphology or physiology or behavioral, that enables the organisms to survive and reproduce in its habitat. These adaptations have long evolutionary times and they are genetically fixed. That means they can pass it down to their offsprings. Now let us go to examples of adaptation. First we shall discuss about physiological adaptation. Kangaroo rat is one organism that live in desert in North America. And we know that desert is a place where there is a scarcity of water. Now these kangaroo rat undergo physiological adaptation so that they can continue to survive in desert where there is a scarcity of water. Now they undergo internal fats oxidation. That means breaking down of fats in their body, and during this water is produced as byproduct. So they will use that water to carry out metabolic activities within their body. Apart from that, they also concentrate the urine so that minimum water is used to remove the waste products from their body. Another example of physiological adaptation is when we climb a high mountain, we experienced what is called altitude sickness. When we suffer from altitude sickness, we suffer from nausea, fatigue, and heart palpitations. The heartbeat become faster. Now, altitude sickness is because of less availability of oxygens at high altitude. Now, how our body overcome this altitude sickness? Our body overcome this altitude sickness by increasing red blood count in our body, decreasing the binding capacity of hemoglobin, and by increasing breathing rate. So this adaptation will help in easy supply of more and more oxygens to different parts of the body. Let us go to examples of morphological adaptation. How organism changes their body structures to overcome the stressful environment that they are living. Many desert plants have thick cuticles. Cuticles are waxy protective layer covering the leaf surface. And this is also adaptation to minimize the loss of water through transpiration. Another adaptation is the arrangement of stomata on the leaves. The stomata are arranged in a deep pits. This is also again an adaptation to minimize loss of water through transpiration. Some desert plants like acacia, you can look at the picture at the right hand side, reduce the leaves into spine. You don't see leaves but a spine. Actually these spines are the reduced leaves. These leaves are reduced to prevent transpiration so that they minimize the loss of water. Then if the leaves are reduced into spine, who perform the photosynthesis function, this photosynthesis function is taken over by flattened green stem. Another examples of morphological adaptation can be taken from Allen's rules. According to Allen's rules, mammals belonging to colder climates generally possess shorter body structures such as ears, tails, nose, limbs, etc. And this is an adaptation to reduce the surface area and minimize heat loss. Okay, you can see the picture of rabbits. Now the first picture is a rabbit living in hot climate, and the last one is a picture of rabbit living in cold climate. Now you can see the difference in the structures of ears. The rabbit, the same species, rabbit living in cold climate has longer, living in hot climate has longer ear structure, and the rabbit that is living in cold climate has shorter ear structure. Now, the size of these rabbit ears living in cold climate, okay, that is short, help to conserve heat, okay, and the long ears of rabbit living in hot climate help in heat loss and evaporation. Now let us go to examples of behavioral adaptation. Desert lizards, okay, bask in the sun and absorb heat when their body temperature drops below the comfort zone. That means when the body temperature of desert lizard drops below the comfort zone, they will simply expose their body in the sun and absorb the heat and warm up. And if the body temperature rise up above the comfort zone, then they will simply move into the shade and reduce their body temperature. So this is an example of behavioral adaptation. Another example of behavioral adaptation is migration of birds. Okay. In migration of birds, the birds moved to other areas to avoid extreme cold, and when the cold climate is over and the favorable temperature return, then they will move back to their original places. This is also an example of behavioral adaptation. So that's all for today. Thanks for watching.